This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutastrophe. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. Now, normally I do a birthday boy who is still surviving at the time of taping, but July 23rd, I already did birthday boys for Gary Payton and Mark Garcia Parra. And I couldn't find anyone who was living who was good. But anyway, this guy is a legend. He's a Dodgers. He played for the Dodgers all this time. He was a sports commentator who was pretty good at his job. He was inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1984. His name, Don Drysdale. Drysdale was born in 1936 in Van Nuys, Los Angeles. His father was a repair supervisor for a telephone company and all that. He went to Van Nuys High School, and his classmate was Robert Redford. I think Redford's still alive. Is he? Yep, Robert Redford's still alive. But anyway, he was a second baseman for many years, and then in his senior year of high school, he decided to pitch, and he was 10-1. The Brooklyn Dodgers signed him out of high school for a signing bonus of $4,000. This was before the days of the MLB draft. So he played in Class C in 1954, and then in 1955 he was promoted to AAA, and guess where Brooklyn's AAA affiliate is? Not Toronto, Montreal. So he went to the Montreal Royals and was 11-11 in AAA. Brooklyn promoted him the same year, well, 1956. So he and Sandy Koufax actually were paired up together in one of the most dominant pitching duels in history. People forget that Koufax's career almost blew up by 1960 because he was losing games and walking more than he would strike out. But after a few pointers, his fastball and all that worked out. Funny as it was, Drysdale and Koufax actually served in the U.S. Army Reserve at the same time at Fort Dix in New Jersey, near the 57 season. Anyhow, in 1962, Drysdale put up 25 wins and led the majors in strikeouts of 232, winning the Cy Young Award. Now it's for Pitcher of the Year. Now it's huge to realize that between 1956 and 1966, only one Cy Young Award was given. It's not like it is now that one goes to the American League Pitcher of the Year and one to the National League Pitcher of the Year. It was for the whole Pitcher of the Year. Regardless, he looked good. He even did better in 63, getting 251 strikeouts and helping the Dodgers win the World Series against the Yankees. He hit 7 home runs in the 1965 season when pitchers got to hit, and actually batted .300, which was actually he was the only Dodger hitter to do so. Every other Dodger hitter batted below .300. Yet, the Dodgers still won the World Series, winning it in 7 games in Minnesota. In fact, that Game 7 in Minnesota is the only time the Twins have ever hosted a World Series game. This is 65, 87, 91, with losing a game. Every 87, 91, they won all 4 games on home turf. So they were 11-1 on home turf. It's weird how the Twins actually got possession of Game 7 in their 3 World Series appearances. Drysdale would pitch Game 1 in the 1966 World Series because Koufax refused to because it landed on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Unfortunately, Baltimore would give up. No, sorry, this is 1965. What am I thinking? Anyway, 1965, Drysdale pitched Game 1 and got crushed and all that. However, Koufax did win Game 7 on a shutout. Drysdale won Game 4, getting revenge. Drysdale would team up with Koufax to take care of things and have a famous salary holdout together. They actually had 592 strikeouts between the two of them, but they wanted to be paid $500,000 over 3 seasons. But the Dodgers GM says that it's team policy to give them 1-year contracts. They both ended up signing 1-year contracts before the season opened. Drysdale put up $110,000, Koufax $125,000. But they became the first pitchers to earn 6 figures a year. Drysdale in 1968 would actually be the record holder with 6 straight shutouts and 58 and 2/3 scoreless innings. So that's huge. How you could throw? It's hard to throw a shutout in baseball nowadays. Imagine 1968 getting 6 straight shutouts. Of course, the scoreless inning streak actually was broken by Earl Hershiser in 1988, but the 6 straight shutouts was not. So Drysdale did pretty well for himself. Of course, it's a little biased in 1968 because it was the year of the pitcher, in which, Bob Gibson put up a 1.12 ERA, and the pitchers were outlasting hitters. So in 1969, one of the biggest moves baseball did was to raise the pitcher's mound by 6 inches or something. Anyway, Drysdale would have recurring shoulder injuries and would retire during the 1969 season after a torn rotator cuff. The Dodgers in 1984 would retire as number 53. In 14 years with the Dodgers organization, he put up 209 wins and 166 losses, 2.95 ERA, 2,486 strikeouts. He missed 2,500 Ks by 14. Yikes. 6 times he would strike out 200 plus hitters in a season. He was 3-3 in the World Series with a 2.95 ERA. So yeah, 1962 Cy Young champion. He could have been the NL Cy Young winner in 1968, but it was Bob Gibson's year. He was a good hitting pitcher. He's 6th all-time for pitchers home runs by a pitcher with 29. And of course now pitchers don't hit unless you pinch hit for them. Anyway, he did pretty well for himself. In fact, Drysdale was the last active player on the Dodgers roster to play in Brooklyn. So Drysdale was the last Brooklyn guy. Anyway, he would use brushback pitches and a sidearm fastball to intimidate batters and all that. Unfortunately, he would leave the NL and hit batters 4 times. But he had discipline. Drysdale, in 1970, a year after he retired, decided to do broadcasting. And his first job? That's right, for Montreal. The Montreal Expos hired him for 2 years. Don Drysdale was the color commentator to Hal Kelly. Then he went on to Texas for a year, then California between 1973 and 1981. So he would be the Angels' main guy. And then the White Sox. He would be an analyst for them from 1982 to 1987. Before Hawk Harrelson came in. But yeah, Don Drysdale was the White Sox announcer. He worked for NBC in 1977, but he went to ABC from 1978 to 1986. And all of that. And would be a Dodgers analyst from 1988 till 1993. Drysdale would actually do college football games for ABC. All that. Famously, Game 4 of the 1980 NLCS between the Astros and Phillies happened. But Keith Jackson, the main play-by-play guy for ABC, had to call Oklahoma, Texas. The big Texas-Oklahoma matchup, the Red River Shootout. Drysdale filled in for Jackson on play-by-play for the early innings before Keith came back. Drysdale would famously be the play-by-play guy in the 1984 NLCS. Well, Keith Jackson did the ALCS, but Drysdale would be the main guy with Reggie Jackson and Earl Weaver as color commentators. And let's not forget that Drysdale had a few big calls and all that. Remember, it was Don Drysdale who said in Game 5 of the Cubs-Padres, ground ball right through his legs. We're tied up. But Game 4 was the big call, when Steve Garvey hit the home run off Lee Smith. Deep right field, way back, Cotto going back to the wall. It's gone! Home run Garvey, and there will be tomorrow. Because the Cubs had 2-0 series lead in the best of 5. That was the last year the LCS was the best of 5. Then it moved to best of 7. But yeah, Drysdale did his job. All that. Drysdale would be doing broadcasting for the White Sox and all that. So yeah. Drysdale did a lot of things and all that. Drysdale was the Dodgers announcer when Hershiser was going for the shutout, the scoreless inning streak, and all that. Well, Hershiser needed to pitch 10 shutout innings. The Dodgers obliged. Hershiser pitched the first 10 innings with a scoreless tie left, but the Padres won in the 16th. Well, Hershiser almost didn't want to pitch in the 10th inning to basically defer to Drysdale, but he was talked into it. This was Drysdale's call of the 1988 World Series. You know, the Kirk Gibson home run? Drysdale called it for the Dodgers radio network, but his call. Well, you know about the Jack Buck and the Vince Scully call. This is how Drysdale described it. Gibson, a deep sigh, regripping the bat, shoulders just shrugged, now goes to the top of the helmet as he always does. Steps in with that left foot, Eckersley working out of his stretch. Here's the 2-3-2 pitch. And a drive into right field. Way back. This ball is gone. After 2 minutes of crowd notes, this crowd will not stop. They can't believe the ending. And this time, Mighty Casey did not strike out. So in 1958, Drysdale married a fashion model by the name of Ginger, having a daughter, but then they divorced in 1982. He would marry famous basketball player Ann Myers in 1986. They would have 3 children together, 2 sons and a daughter. And Ann was named to the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1993. However, Don Drysdale's death was shocking. July 2nd, 1993, Drysdale worked the TV broadcast when the Dodgers faced the Expos at Stade Olympique. After the game, he returned to his room at the hotel. But when the team left for the stadium the next morning, he was not with them. And many members were sent back to the hotel to get Drysdale, but they found his body laying face down on the floor. It was a heart attack. It was dead for 18 hours. The Dodgers would note the death of their star pitcher during the broadcast of the game later on. Vince Scully was actually asked not to say anything on the air until Drysdale's family was notified. Announced the news of his death by saying, "Never have I been asked to make an announcement that hurts me as much as this one. And I say it to you as best I can with a broken heart." Hawk Harrelson, who was a colleague of the White Sox, broadcast colleague of Drysdale, was working the game for the White Sox against the Orioles at Comiskey Park. And he relayed the info to his audience, barely able to keep his composure and all that. Drysdale had some personal belongings in his hotel room, and it was a cassette tape of Robert F. Kennedy's victory speech after the primary. And then, of course, that was moments before Senator Kennedy's assassination. And actually, Kennedy had noted that Drysdale had pitched his 6th straight shutout that evening. What a memory. He was on TV and all that. He was on Leave It to Beaver in 1962. The Beverly Hillbillies in 1963 when Drysdale and Leo DeRocher played golf with Jad and Jethro. And they might be good baseball prospects. He was on the Joey Bishop Show, The Flying Nun, The Brady Bunch in 1970. Anyway, yeah. So Don Drysdale was amazing and all that. It was just shocking, but yeah, he had a good color commentating duo. And he ended up calling his last game in the city where he called his first major broadcasting game, Montreal. But Don Drysdale would sadly be missed. I think he had 10 more years of life in him. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.